Maybe it's wrong, but anytime I think of a U.S. Senator from Alabama, I can't help but think of Howell Heflin because of the late, great Chris Farley's indelible impersonation of Howell Heflin. Remember when Farley played Howell Heflin and when they did the SNL spoofs on the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings?
That seems like forever ago, yes.
I mean, I know. I'm stuck in time, but it's just so good. But we have to talk about serious things. Katie Britt is much more appealing than Howell Heflin. That's a low bar. She's the youngest Republican woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I won't ask her age because that's impolite.
Yes, Tina,
she's got a new book. But before we get to that, here is Senator Britt just a few weeks back after having visited the border, which, of course, was a topic of conversation at last night's GOP presidential debate.
We walked through and we got to hear women tell us their story. And their stories are brutalizing. And to Senator Cruz's point, if you're not telling it, that's on you. Because when a woman sits there and she tells you not just about being raped, but how many times a day she's raped, when she tells you about having to lay in that bed while they come in and out and in and out, it's disgusting and it's despicable. Folks, you look at the number of people that have died at the border because Joe Biden has made it more and more enticing to come here. Make no mistake, this is a result of failed policies. We could fix this. We can't throw money at this and fix it. We have to actually change the policies. I looked in the eyes of CBP agents who said we're exhausted. We're not only having to be paper pushers, we're also trying to do what we took an oath of office to do, and that is protect this border. But when they tell you about finding small children who have drowned in that river or pulling a lifeless body of a woman who is pregnant with twins, it changes the way you think about what's happening. Drug cartels, guys, they have their tentacles all over this country. We need you to start telling that story. To Senator Cruz's point, they will tell you exactly how much they paid to get here. Then they'll tell you where they're going, what their job's going to be, and how much more they owe. Got it? And guess what? Just the other day in Alabama, a gentleman told me, if you will come back here with me in this neighborhood right behind you, you will see migrants who are here illegally, and they will tell you about the drug cartels coming around every other week to collect. Guys, that's not the American dream. That's an American nightmare.
Wow, she's good.
Senator Katie Britt, a Republican from Alabama, her new book, God Calls Us to Do Hard Things, Lessons from the Alabama Wiregrass. Senator Britt, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. I really appreciate y'all having me on. I appreciate getting to be with y'all and in front of your audience.
And I love your state. I was in Alabama last week, University of Alabama. They played Georgia Tech in volleyball. So you've got a beautiful state there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And it's a beautiful campus. My daughter is a volleyball player, so that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, no, this is going to go off the rails now. You two are just going to talk about volleyball. We have to talk about
won't ask position.
We have to talk about additionally important things like the border, too. I mean, that was certainly a topic that was tackled yesterday at the Republican presidential debate. And, you sort of had the competing Dirty Harry rhetoric from Ramaswamy and DeSantis and others. But it seems to me there's general Republican consensus on this, to the point that you were making when you were admonishing the press corps, and the point that Tom Homan always makes, the former acting director of ICE, that secure borders save lives. Remain in Mexico, the requisite security to prevent the incursion, to disincentivize more migrants from moving towards our southern border. It seems like the Republican Party is generally on the same page on this. So what can be done when you only control 1/3 of the government?
Look, we've got to stand up, and I love that you mentioned Tom because, I mean, he is a true leader on this. And we've got to talk about this in a way that people can hear us, and we've got to really lead in a way they can follow, because the country's counting on it. First, we've got to work to secure the border. That said it in there, but obviously there are policy changes that go along with that. We need to change the asylum standard. There are loopholes that this administration is utilizing that we need to close. We need to put back in the Remain in Mexico policy. We need to institute a safe third country policy. So there are a number, when we look at the parole system, that it is absolutely broken. That needs to be adjusted. When you look at funding mechanisms, which we're going to have to, kind of coalesce as Republicans on the Senate side and really speak with one voice in order to make any changes. And to me, look, obviously we're not going to get everything we want in this, right this second when we're not in charge. But it shouldn't be for a lack of trying. We should be moving towards everything we want. When you look at funding portions, making sure that we actually finish building the wall. We need both physical barriers, technological barriers. We need more money for ICE officers. If you look at it, we have 6,000 ICE officers in the interior. They have about 6.5 million they're tracking. On the non-detained docket, there have been 1 million people, over 1 million people that have orders to be deported. That's where we need to be spending money. We need to get them out. We need more detention beds. There are a number of things that we need to be doing. Look, we know what works. We saw it in the last administration. We've got to go back to that because the safety and security of our nation is hanging in the balance.
But sticking with Tom Homan for a moment, he doesn't think it's a resource issue, it's a policy issue, which I know you've sort of articulated as well. Especially if you're just, as DeSantis said last night, if you're just going to hire more ICE agents to process asylum applications, then what are you really doing? It seems, but Homan's call is shut everything down. There's no funding for anything. The temporary layoff of a quarter of the federal workforce too, what we call a government shutdown, whatever it takes to zero in on this and get the policy changes that are required to secure the border. It doesn't seem like congressional Republicans are willing to die on that hill at this point.
I have to say there is a lot of effort and momentum within the Republican conference. So obviously only time will tell where we're able to get that. But people are seeing it. And to be truthful with you, the Democrats have got to wake up. You look at the poll numbers and only 23% of America agrees with how Joe Biden is handling the border. So I think we have the leverage, and now it's, do we have the will to use it? And I am certainly hopeful that we do. I will be pushing us to do that because we cannot sustain another, year and a couple of months under these failed policies. So I think we'll push back. We'll push back hard. And to the point about there's a difference. ICE officers versus what you see from the administration. You're correct. They want more clerical people in different spaces. What we need are actual officers that can hunt down fugitives, hunt down criminal aliens, that can actually deport it. Right now, the numbers are they would have to deport. Each ICE agent would have to find about 167 people a year that have already been said that they have to leave this nation in order for us to get all 1 million out in a year. And I've been told yesterday that it's actually more than 1 million people that have been set to be removed. But this administration, we're at in 2022, FY 2022, they were like a 32-1 migrants illegally entering the nation versus how many people they were deporting. And obviously a stark difference than what we saw under Trump. So we got to continue to fight back. And certainly Tom's an expert on this. And so I always appreciate knowing where he is and what his voice is because he knows what he's talking about.
It would be nice if ICE agents can arrest those cartel members that you're talking about that come back to collect every week, you said?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's what people are, you hear Democrats talk about how that their policies are humane. Their policies are anything but that. There are women that are being victims of traffic under the drug cartels. You've got them utilizing TikTok. these men, children, everyone having to pay to get here. And then that's what people don't get. Once they get here, they are still under the thumb of the cartel. The cartels have their tentacles all across this country. So these quote-unquote migrants are not winning. I can assure you that. Clearly, Americans are not winning. The only people winning under Joe Biden's failed policies are drug cartels. He has made them billions of dollars, and he has allowed them to make these migrants indentured servants in so many ways, and he's put American safety at risk. You look at the fentanyl, you look at that's the leading cause of death in this country between the ages of 18 and 45. We know exactly what's happening. It's coming from China. It's making its way to Mexico. It's coming across our border, and it's literally killing over 300 people a day, and that's in addition to all of the other things that we have to deal with under this crisis.
So what was your handle on the election results from Tuesday night, the disappointing election results, including in Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's home state and somebody that he's had a longstanding relationship with, a really attractive candidate in Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General? They're losing in a state that Trump won by 26 points, and all the discussion about where the GOP needs to be on abortion, and that was part of the debate last night as well. What's your analysis?
Yeah, so we've got to do a better job of messaging. We are right on the policies. I mean, you look at where the nation is, we are more vulnerable and weaker at the border, as we just discussed. We clearly are abroad and here at home. And so I know that if you look back under President Trump, obviously we had a secure border. We had a commander-in-chief that understood peace through strength, and we actually garnered respect from both our allies and our adversaries. And then you look at home, your 401ks were higher. You look at the gas pump, and you're not paying as much to fill up your car. And people believe they had an opportunity at the American dream. We've got to go out and communicate our message, remind people that our policies work, remind them that they will shift from the place that we are here. And then we've got to lead in a way that other people can follow. And when it comes to issues of life, we have got to hit those head on. And I know that there's talk about whether or not candidates responded in the same amount of time and how we do that. And so I think let's take a step back. Let's look at the polls. Let's look at the crosstabs, and let's figure out a better way to communicate our message, because ultimately I do believe that we're right on policy. We've just got to do a better job of getting that to the people.
We've got to do the hard things, which is what God calls us to do, and it's also the name of your book. What was the impetus for God Calls Us to Do Hard Things?
So, when I got in this race, and you mentioned it earlier, the youngest Republican female ever elected to the U.S. Senate, a lot of people thought that this wasn't possible. I was, at the time, a 39-year-old unknown female, and the gentleman who was already in the race was polling at 65%. He was a sitting congressman, and he had at the time the former president's endorsement. And then there was me, and I was polling at 2. We knew that we would have to step down from our jobs, both my husband and I. We knew that people said there was no way in the world that this could happen in the state of Alabama. And we were praying about it, and my son asked to speak with me privately. He sat me down first and gave me a list of things of why I should do it. And so part of tugging on my heartstrings was what it would mean for my children. And so for him to do that was big. But then I kept thinking, well, my daughter. And then she said, Mom, you know what? You've got to do this. I said, I've got to do what? She said, you've got to run for the United States Senate. And I said, sweetheart, I really appreciate that you think your mama can run for the United States Senate, but I don't think you realize what a hard thing it is. And without telling her all of those things that I just told you, I just said, baby, it's a really hard thing. And she looked right back at me and without hesitation said, well, Mama, doesn't God call you to do hard things? And that was the moment where I thought, you know what, I know God is not guaranteeing us any result, but he is telling us that we need to step into the arena. And so this book is about a lot of the hard things in life. I think you see people's peaks in life, and if you don't see them, then you can find them on their Instagram feed. But it is people's valleys where God really, right, really carves you up and prepares you for His purpose. And so I talk a lot about my failures. I talk about lessons learned, and the thought is that the next generation, we've got to equip them with the fundamental values of this country, that faith, family, and freedom are the most important things. We've got to remind them who they are and whose they are. We've got to encourage them and people, whether it's the young or the young at heart, that want to, spark a new lease on life, to step into the arena, because I believe every generation is called to do hard things. If you look at what happened on D-Day, and you look at, the cliffs that those men climbed up and stared in the face of the unthinkable. You look at what Reagan did. You look at 9/11 and our just incredible, men and women, first responders that didn't rush away but rushed to the disaster. And I think we are seeing right now what our generation is called to do. And we have some fundamental cracks in the foundation of this country, and we are going to have to work diligently to fill them. So it encourages people to follow God's purpose. It talks about lessons in life, and hopefully reminds this nation who we are and what we're about, and that we God calls us to do hard
and
things.
Senator Britt, I mean, you've got a fascinating story. You grew up working in your parents' hardware store, and how did you go when you were polling at a 2 to pull off and beat your opponent? What was the messaging that you got out that was successful that maybe the Republican Party as a whole can do?
Yeah, so obviously it goes back to hard work, which is one of the things that we talk about in the book. We've moved into this place where the nation, the government wants you to just keep your hand out and let them give you more, instead of keeping your head down and working hard to achieve. And we went grassroots. We went all over the state each and every day, and I think it mattered. And we took a message of that the Republican Party is the party of parents, and we are the party of hard-working Americans. And just that the government in general, people are ready for new blood. They're ready for fresh blood. People want us to fight for these foundational freedoms that I believe the nation gives us. They want us to fight for our values, and they want us to fight for our people. And so connecting with people, listening to them, and demanding that we're part of the solution, I think was something that spoke to people all across the state. And I believe Alabama is a great state with great people, and we have a great story to tell. And so making sure that we're contributing to the greater good of the nation is also critically important.
She is Katie Britt, Republican Senator from the great state of Alabama. Her new book, God Calls Us to Do Hard Things, Lessons from the Alabama Wiregrass. Senator Britt, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate being on.
All right, thank you, and God bless. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
At Signature Bank, going the distance for business banking customers is what we do every day. We understand that business owners have a strategic mission, a drive to succeed, a plan for growth, and don't have time to wait for a bank to respond. With Signature Bank,